Welcome back to the Guiding Light 911 online podcast. Today, we're going to do a deep dive into Gamblers Anonymous, specifically their workbook, a Guiding Light Workbook. You can kind of think of it as like a 12-step roadmap
Yeah.
to recovery from gambling addiction.
Right.
And it's packed with exercises and prompts for self-reflection. And one of the things that really jumps out at me about this workbook is how it tackles gambling's impact on you,
Hmm.
not just physically, but also mentally and spiritually.
Yeah. It's a very holistic approach. It recognizes that gambling addiction isn't just something that happens, at the casino or wherever. It really spills over into every single aspect of your life.
Exactly. It creates like this ripple effect that goes out.
Yeah.
It touches your relationships, your work, your finances. And the workbook doesn't shy away from that at all.
No, it
It
doesn't.
gets real about the consequences.
Absolutely. I mean,
Yeah.
take step one, for example, admitting powerlessness over gambling. The workbook gives some really powerful examples of how this addiction can lead to just an unmanageable life. Constantly borrowing money from people, neglecting your responsibilities at home, at work. The list goes on and on. It really paints a clear picture of what happens when gambling takes over.
It's eye-opening for sure, especially the part about recognizing, the self-destructive patterns
Hmm.
that we fall into as compulsive gamblers. Those moments where we're just kind of on autopilot and we're repeating the same harmful behaviors
Yeah.
without even realizing it.
Yeah. The workbook actually describes it as being out of touch with ourselves and reality, like we're trapped in this cycle
Yeah.
of just denial and self-sabotage.
Step two. I think this might be a hurdle for some people.
Sure.
It's about believing in a higher power. But this is where the workbook, I think, gets really interesting because it's less about religion and more about just acknowledging that there's a force greater than ourselves, something that can help us restore balance in our lives and, find a normal way of living.
Yeah, and they actually define normal in the workbook, in the context of recovery. And it's not about being perfect. It's not about never making a mistake. It's about living a life where gambling doesn't have this hold over you, where you can make healthy choices. You can build meaningful relationships, just have a life that's not controlled by this addiction.
It's about regaining that control.
Yeah.
And the workbook emphasizes the importance of support on this journey. It encourages you to find a sponsor, to attend meetings and just constantly be reviewing, the 12 steps and the 20 questions,
Right.
really immersing yourself in this recovery process.
Yeah, it's about building that support network, having people who can guide you and hold you accountable. Because, recovery is not something you do alone. It's about reaching out and connecting with other people who understand what you're going through.
And speaking of support, if you're finding this deep dive helpful, you can find a ton of resources over at agl901.com, including this workbook. Now, step three. This is where things get really deep. It's about turning your will and your life over to this higher power. And I think this can be a tough concept to grasp, especially when you're used to, being in control and calling all the shots.
For sure. It's definitely like a surrender.
Yeah, it is. It's like a leap of faith. But the workbook uses a really great analogy. It talks about willingness being the key. That unlocks the door to recovery.
I like that.
So the moment that you're willing to let go, even just a little bit, you're opening yourself up to the possibility of change.
Yeah, you're creating space for something new to come in.
Exactly. And I think it's important to remember that you get to define what this higher power means to you. It doesn't have to fit into any box, any preconceived notions or any kind of religious dogma. It's about finding what resonates with you personally.
Absolutely. Could be a spiritual being, a community, nature even, or just a set of guiding principles. The key is to find something outside of yourself that you can draw strength and guidance from.
Okay, next up is step 4. And this is where the rubber meets the road. This is all about taking a fearless and searching moral inventory of yourself and also a financial inventory. No sugarcoating here.
All right.
It's time to face the music.
Yeah. The workbook encourages brutal honesty. It provides prompts for you to list your positive and negative character traits, things like selfishness, resentment, fear, and to really examine how those traits have impacted your gambling and your life as a whole.
And it doesn't stop there. There's a whole section dedicated to financial inventory.
Yeah.
You're asked to list your assets, your liabilities, your debts, really lay it all out on the table.
It's about confronting the damage, the financial wreckage that gambling has caused, and taking ownership of your situation.
And this step, I imagine, can be incredibly daunting for a lot of people.
Absolutely.
But I think it can also be incredibly liberating.
It's about owning your mistakes and starting to rebuild from a place of honesty. And I think it's interesting that they even include prompts for reflecting on resentments, injuries, and their effects, like acknowledging that these emotional wounds play a role in our addictive behavior.
Yeah, it's all connected. Our thoughts, our feelings, our actions, and how those things manifest in our lives. It's about recognizing that our past experiences, both positive and negative, have shaped who we are and how we cope with life's challenges.
Yeah.
And sometimes those coping mechanisms, they lead us down these destructive paths.
Yeah. Steps 5, 6, and 7 kind of build on this foundation of self-awareness that we've been talking about. And it's about admitting your wrongs, not just to yourself, but to another human being. And this is where finding someone you trust, someone who's not going to judge you, becomes so crucial.
Yeah. It's about breaking that cycle of secrecy and shame that so often surrounds addiction.
Right.
And the workbook really emphasizes that admitting our wrongs is a vital step towards healing and growth.
It takes a lot of courage to be that vulnerable. Oh, absolutely.
But it also opens the door to accountability and support.
Yeah.
And then step 6 takes it a step further. It's about being ready, truly ready to change.
Yeah. It's about shifting from a place of denial and resistance to a place of willingness and acceptance. It's like saying, okay, I'm ready to face this addiction head on and do whatever it takes to recover.
And then step 7 is about humility, asking for help to remove those shortcomings that we've identified. It's acknowledging that we can't do this alone.
Right. And the workbook encourages you to find a sponsor, someone who has walked this path before you and can offer guidance and support. It's about tapping into that collective wisdom of the Gamblers Anonymous community.
It's about recognizing that there's strength in numbers. You know, you don't have to reinvent the wheel. There are people out there who have been where you are and have come out the other side.
Exactly.
And they're willing to help.
Yes.
Now, steps 8 and 9. Focus on making amends. And this can be a really challenging process.
It can be.
But it can also be incredibly healing.
Absolutely.
And it starts with acknowledging the people that you've harmed, both financially and emotionally.
Right.
The workbook provides prompts for listing these individuals. And it encourages you to reflect on the nature of the harm that you've caused. It's about taking responsibility for your actions.
It is. And it's not just about saying, I'm sorry. It's about making a genuine effort to repair the damage you've done.
Right.
But the workbook also cautions against making amends that could actually further injure the person or others. It's about being mindful and compassionate in your approach.
It's about finding that balance between taking responsibility and also avoiding further harm.
Exactly.
And when it comes to financial amends, the workbook actually outlines a really structured process
It does.
for going about this.
Yeah, and it emphasizes the importance of first creating an emergency fund to make sure that you're taking care of yourself, ensuring your own stability before you start tackling those debts.
Right.
It's a very practical approach that recognizes that you can't help others if you're drowning yourself.
It's about building a solid foundation for your own recovery before you can extend a hand to help others. And speaking of support and resources, if you're finding this conversation helpful, be sure to check out agl901.com. They have a ton of information and tools to help you on your recovery journey, including the full Guiding Light Workbook.
Right.
The final 3 steps. Steps 10, 11, and 12 are all about continued growth and service. And these steps really highlight that recovery is an ongoing process. It's a lifelong commitment to self-awareness and positive change.
It is.
Step 10 encourages continued personal inventory and prompt admission of wrongdoing. It's about staying vigilant and accountable to yourself.
Yeah. It's like checking in regularly, making sure that you're not slipping back into those old patterns of thinking and behaving.
Recognizing that recovery is not a destination. It's a journey. And there will be bumps on the road.
There will be.
But the key is to catch yourself early and course correct.
Absolutely.
And step 11 emphasizes deepening your connection with your higher power through prayer and meditation. It's about finding that inner strength and guidance to help you stay on track.
Yeah, it's about recognizing that you're not alone in this journey. There's a power greater than yourself that you can tap into for support and inspiration.
And the workbook encourages you to connect with that power in whatever way feels authentic to you.
Exactly.
Whether it's traditional prayer, meditation, spending time in nature, or just simply reflecting on your values and principles.
Right. It's about finding what works for you.
And the workbook also emphasizes the importance of connecting with others in recovery.
Yeah.
It even encourages you to use the telephone list to
Yeah.
reach out to fellow members between meetings.
Mhm.
It's about building that support system that
Yeah.
can help you stay accountable and encouraged
Yeah.
on your journey.
It's about recognizing that you're part of a community. You're not alone in this struggle.
Right.
And that connection can be so powerful, especially when you're facing challenges or feeling discouraged.
Now, finally, step 12 focuses on carrying the message to other compulsive gamblers. And this is about extending a hand to those who are still suffering, just like others helped you along the way.
Right.
It's about paying it forward and sharing your experience, strength, and hope with others who are struggling.
Yeah, it's like you're creating this ripple effect of healing and hope within the community.
It's like that saying, a rising tide lifts all boats.
Yeah.
By helping others, you're also helping yourself stay afloat. And I love how the workbook doesn't just say go help people. It actually gives you specific ways that you can do that, like volunteering, sharing your story, just being there for someone who's struggling.
Yeah, it provides practical tools to turn that desire to help into action. It recognizes that taking that step, reaching out to others, can often be the most powerful affirmation of your own commitment to recovery.
It's like walking the walk, not just talking the talk. Now, as we wrap up this deep dive into the Guiding Light Workbook, what really strikes me is how it blends practicality with a deep understanding of the spiritual and emotional aspects of recovery.
Yeah, I agree. You see that in step 4, for example, where you're encouraged to do this really detailed financial inventory, but also to examine your character traits, the good and the bad, to acknowledging that financial problems are often just a symptom of deeper emotional struggles.
Right. And in step 11, it suggests prayer and meditation to connect with a higher power, but it also stresses the importance of taking action and actually living by those principles in your daily life.
Yeah, it's about aligning your actions with your values.
I think what also stands out to me is just the workbook's honesty.
Yeah.
It doesn't shy away from the fact that recovery is a journey, not a destination, and that there will be setbacks, moments of doubt, and, the temptation to slip back into those old patterns.
Yeah, for sure. But it also provides the hope and the tools to navigate those challenges, like in step 10, where it encourages you to constantly take inventory of yourself and to catch those negative thought patterns before they spiral out of control.
It's about developing that self-awareness
Yeah.
and that ability to course correct when you kind of veer off track a little bit. And remember, you don't have to do this alone. If you're looking for guidance and support, agl901.com is a fantastic resource. You can find the full Guiding Light Workbook there, along with a wealth of information and tools.
It really is a roadmap to recovery, a guide to help you navigate each step of the journey. It's packed with insights, exercises, and real-life stories that offer both practical advice and a sense of hope that recovery is possible.
It's a powerful reminder that recovery is possible, no matter how challenging your situation may seem, and that with the right support and the willingness to do the work, you can reclaim your life and build a future free from gambling addiction. Thank you so much for joining us for this exploration of the A Guiding Light Workbook. We hope you found it insightful and encouraging. And if you did, be sure to check out other episodes of the A Guiding Light 911 online podcast.